of shy being amongst all of y'all and all the power in this room. And I feel like I can just see your ancestors surrounding you, at your back, behind you, over you, affirming the amazing work you're doing on the lands. You know, my family was part of the Great Migration, you know, exiled from South Carolina a couple generations ago, and there's a sad joy that comes like coming back this way and thinking about what we left behind and what we're now reuniting with. So it's really, really special to be here. You want to say something? All right. I should do my remarks, right? Or you want to?
I think the way that we can just kind of flow. You know, it's all good. I mean, this is not as now, you know, academic.
Where, yeah, tomorrow will be a little more academic. This is going to be a little more personal story.
Yeah, I thought it would be a good idea that instead of, you know, us getting into your whole presentation for tomorrow, I would do something a little bit more resonant for the moment, I guess. Because we got predominantly people of color in the room, right? And then tomorrow we might not. So how can we, you know, really cover some ground?
Word. So there's a story I want to share with y'all that I've been thinking a lot about. So I'm Black, I'm also Native, I'm also European, a lot of heritages. And recently at Soulfire, we've been doing a ton of organizing work with Native community because we're in a giant land reparations project. And frankly, it would be pretty disingenuous and messed up to do land projects without the folks who originally owned the land. And it has been humbling, fascinating to understand all the ways that we have harmed each other as Black and Native folks, all the ways we've been in solidarity, you know, everything from Buffalo soldiers to Cherokee slaveholders. So I want to tell you the story that was gifted to me by Haudenosaunee elders. So Haudenosaunee are the original people, the Six Nations people of much of New York, which is where we are upstate. In fact, the US Constitution is partially based on their democracy. They have one of the oldest democracies. So this story is part of their creation story. It's about Sky Woman. And Sky Woman is a deity, right? She's like the daughter of the universe. And she was like peeking down on humanity 10,000 years ago or so. It was the hungry moon, it's February, it's about now, you know, like all the food's running out. And all people have in their baskets is the seed that they're gonna plant for the next year. So it's not looking too good. But she doesn't just wanna help them out without really seeing what their character is, right? So she goes down to the people in the longhouse and clothes herself as a beggar and puts out her hand and says, I'm hungry, you know, feed me. And the people, even knowing that their future was at stake, they're generous of heart. So they took all their seed from their baskets, you know, a little bit of dried this and that they had, and they cooked a stew and they gave her the one bowl that they had. So seeing their open-heartedness, right, she reveals herself as God, as Sky Woman, and says, because you are good-hearted people, I'm going to give you my 3 children as gifts. And my 3 children are corn, beans, and squash. Because you plant them together, right, the corn grows tall, it's rich in calories, and minerals, starches. It provides the support for the bean, which fixes nitrogen, provides the protein. The squash has actually natural pesticides that protect the bean, and the seeds are full of oils and the minerals, you know, so you're good, like if you have corn, beans, and squash. And so the people weren't hungry anymore. And I've been thinking a lot about this story because corn is the most sacred crop for Turtle Island folks, including the Taino, including my ancestors from the Caribbean. And Native folks here even gave it to Africans before the Portuguese ever landed in Africa. So it's a sacred crop in Africa too. It's the mother of life, it's 10,000 years old, you know, it's used in ceremony. When I was initiated as a queen mother in Ghana, like we were only allowed to eat like maize and millet. Those were the sacred foods, right? So, but you look at, it was also gifted to white folks. And I was thinking a lot about what the colonizers did to this food. Monoculture, genetic modification, over-fertilization leading to the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, literally turning it into corn syrup that's being pumped into the veins of our children and fueling the diabetes and obesity crisis, right? Whoa. So it's like the bastardization of this sacred gift. It's the commodification of the holy mother maize. And I've been just trying to reframe my whole situation at Soulfire, my whole work, as how do we actually decolonize and re-indigenize our relationship to the seed, to the soil, to one another. Because we've all been colonized to some extent, we've all bought into it, right? So what is that work to actually extract and reclaim? Like our ancestral grandmothers, they braided the millet, the sorghum, the cowpea, the black rice, the melon, the molokia, right, into their hair because they knew the seed was sacred. And they fought in every generation to maintain the sanctity, but we're up against the empire. And so that's what I've been thinking about recently. What have you been thinking about?
No pressure.
You know, I've really been thinking about equity. What does it mean for people of African ancestry to regenerate, regenerate spaces? What does it mean to be a person of African ancestry in Richmond, Virginia, and working to reclaim the land, working to feed community in the face of opposition, I think. I'm hesitant to use the word opposition, right? I think I'll use the word resistance. Because I think people don't.
Outside or inside?
Both. Yeah. In your book, you talk a lot about historical trauma and internalized racism. So internally, I think about that. But I also think about resistance from white wealth, right? And what does that look like? I've been spending a lot of time thinking about white wealth, right? It's a really interesting conversation when you start to think about the work that we need to do in order to reclaim, our space, and who owns the spaces, or quote unquote owns, like who has possession of the spaces, and what does it take to get them to relinquish and redistribute that. So, I don't want to get too deep too early. I think we gotta ease into it. What I was going to ask you to kind of start with is just give us a rundown of what is it that you, what is it that brought you to the work that you do now, and what inspired you to write this love letter to communities of color specifically, and to people, period, in relationship to liberation of the land?
Wow. Yeah, I want to talk about white wealth, but yeah, we should probably start at the beginning and then get to that. Let's see. I mean, I grew up totally in love with the earth because I was in a rural white town, and believe it or not, my light-skinned self really stood out in that town. So my sisters and brothers and I, we were harassed, like beaten, kicked. I mean, it was really rough. People don't joke up there. And so we didn't have any friends except the trees. So we spent a lot of time, and I'll tell you, my sister and I thought we invented, like y'all know about Orisha tradition or Ifa, like nature-based traditional African religion. We thought we invented that because we would just go in the woods and make these temples and stuff. Our ancestors were trying to help us out. So when it came time to get a summer job, my mom and dad split. My mom was in Boston, and the Food Project, which is this urban farm youth thing, was just coming into being. I got the job. I was totally hooked. Like, here's a space where I'm around black and brown folks. I am finally belong. My weird earth-loving self can be getting dirty, and we're doing all this great community work because we were, in domestic violence shelters and farmers markets and stuff. Little did I realize farming was not like that outside the Food Project. So I was just like, oh, I'll get a job at another farm. Looking around. So I didn't give up though. And the reason I didn't give up, I worked at many rural farms. I've been farming 22 years. And it was because at one farming conference, Northeast Organic Farmers, I went around with these little slips of paper. And anyone with melanin, I was like, meet under this tree at 1 o'clock. I was like 17 years old. I was like, we're gonna do this. And there was maybe 10 of it was like one table, And Karen Washington, who is a farmer at Rise and Root Farm and is a national organizer for Black farmers, was there. And she looked at me and she's like, don't give up. I can see that one day, you know, we are gonna make a change and you're gonna be part of that change. 5 years later, we had the Black Farmers Conference and so on. But it really was that moment when I was questioning, you know, am I a race trader? Like, does this even make any sense to be doing the sustainable farming? And at the time, I didn't have any idea that the CSA was started by Booker T. Watley, as was Pick Your Own. That George Washington Carver was the one who gave us leguminous cover cropping strategies and compost. I had no idea that Cleopatra came up with vermicomposting, or that the Ovambo people of Namibia gave us raised beds, or the Kenyans came up with terracing. I had no idea that our folks had innovated pretty much every sustainable agricultural technology that we take for granted as ahistorical. So the reason I wrote the book is because in 20 years of farming, that was my journey. You know, eventually we started Soulfire, Soulfire Farm. There's 8 of us in the collective, sometimes 9, and we grow food on 5 acres. We distribute it to those who need it most. We run training programs. We organize. There's a lot we do, right? But we had to develop curriculum to train farmers in a culturally relevant way. It's all Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian folks who come through our farm, and we need to tell a correct narrative that centered people. So it was like really anthropological research. And it got to the point where our waiting list is 2 years long for our program. So I was like, we can't gatekeep that knowledge. We need a book so that everyone can know that we belong, you know? And so that's why I call it a love letter, because it's really like my 16-year-old self that needed to see that, to know that that I belonged on the lands, that it was my rightful place, my heritage, to have agency on the land. So love letter for my 16-year-old self and all y'all too.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about Soulfire and the trainings, because I think when I first heard about your work, that was one of the things that struck me deepest, is that it's beyond just, you know, practical application. There's also this element of personal development, you know, it seems to be a very, spiritual work in relationship to people coming to grips with some of these ideas and intersectionalities around race and identity, and you know, where they fit in those spaces. So can you tell us a little bit more about how, you know, what does that look like, and what is that about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really honestly a surprise to me, because the earth was never traumatizing for me. I was lucky in that way, because the people were traumatizing. So I'm trying to do these trainings and sit everyone down and teach them about cation exchange capacity, which is like the dopest soil indicator. I just love its stickiness. And then I was trying to, you know, teach them about the best herbs to put around your apple trees. And we did all that, like we're spreadsheet people. But then in the evaluations, folks would come back like, I left a toxic marriage, you know, I was able to get off heroin, like all of these things. And I was like, it's a farming program. Like, why are you talking about your alcohol problem, you know? And what I realized, of course, and what you probably all figured out a lot before me, is that, you know, as Chris Bolden Newsome, who Black farmer friend of mine, Philly area, he said the land was the scene of the crime, right? And so there's a way that we have all this trauma because of slavery and sharecropping and convict leasing and the lynching that happened because we had the audacity to try to own our land. We have all this inherited cellular trauma that makes like just the dirt can be triggering for folks, or bending over can be triggering for folks. But the land was not the criminal. Right? The land actually has always been, in African cosmology, the source of wisdom and belonging and truth. Our ancestors are under the earth and the waters, Ambadlo, right? And the earth herself is an Orisha. She has messages for us. I think one way that I've tangibly experienced this is, you know, Grandma Pine used to be short. All the trees used to be short because they didn't know how to drink rocks. They cannot do that. They can turn sun into sugar, which is amazing, but they don't know how to turn rocks into liquid minerals. Only fungus can do that, right? So Grandma Pine reached out to Brother Fungus and was like, look, I got a deal for you. I'll give you some sugar, you give me some of that mineral juice, right? And then you can spread wide and I can grow tall. And so we have this amazing network in the forest, right? It started with that exchange, and then it expanded to the internet, which is real fast under the forest, where messages and hormones get sent. And you know, if Grandma Pine's about to die, she's gonna dump all her sugars into the network so her babies can live. I believe, and our ancestors believe, that when you touch your bare feet to that forest soil, when you put your hand on that tree, you actually get that information about what it is to live in community, what it is to have true cooperation, true mutual aid. And that's information that informs our human society, right? So when we're separated from the earth by layers of concrete, I feel like we walk around with this like aching little hole where we can't quite figure out what we're missing or what we forgot or what the meaning is. And it's when we get back connected to the land, like, yeah, we grow food, that's very important, but I think we also find that piece of our souls that we left back in the red clays of Georgia.
So.
Oh yeah, I didn't answer your question.
Yeah, it's gonna. It's okay.
You guys said about the trees.
I mean, that's a powerful metaphor, and I mean, I think that, you know, as gardeners and as farmers, you know, like, we live in this world of metaphor. My brother Ross Kofi, you know, he always says that the farm is life, right? And if anyone's been in the Beginner Urban Gardener program, you probably hear us, you know, talking about what are you composting, or just talking about trying to correlate these messages and gardening techniques to real life. But you know, I want to dig into this component of your work that deals with that human development that is tied into the working of the land. What afforded you, like, how did you come up with the model, or how has it been evolving to do trainings around racial justice in a farm context, right? Because for those who may or may not experience racial justice, kind of this space is very unique. It's a very, how you say, it can be a lot of talk, right? But then at the same time, it sometimes can be exhausting to just continue talking, right? About what does justice mean, what is microaggressions, what is an ally, and all these type of things. But, you know, for me, I'm often wondering, how do we move beyond just talking, while recognizing that talking is a thing to do? And what I've seen in your work, it appears that you all have found a fusion between a dialogue and, here, let's do something together that, you know, can unpack. So maybe you can help us, like, understand what your racial justice kind of orientation is, and how did you get there, and how did you end up doing trainings at Soulfire? In that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of two kind of trainings we do. So we have like Black, Indigenous, people of color spaces where we learn how to farm, and we do the healing we need to do for ourselves. Those are caucus spaces. And those came out of that evolves based on what the community says. We're lots of feedback loops. We want to learn more of this, less of this, you know. And we have our spiritual baths, our drumming, our dancing, our storytelling, all of that. The white people work, which it sounds like what you're talking about, we actually tried once to do like a white people week-long training on racism. It was very powerful for them. I'll give you one quick anecdote. This was actually amazing. So white folks often imagine that they don't have culture, right? Because the job of white supremacy is to erase ethnicity, including your Italian, your British, you know, wherever you're from, is to erase. And so there was this interesting moment when, for all of our programs, regardless of who's coming, we have a little spot in the application where we say, you know, what kind of cultural elements you want to share with the group. Do song, dance thing, because then we do a night and we share. Black and brown folks always fill it out, so I never thought anything. And then 0 of the white, they just left it blank. It was fascinating. So it made me think when they came to the farm, because I'm not about like, I mean, it's fine if you all are, but I'm not so much about like shaming and all that stuff, but it was an important learning point. So I just said, okay, for the week, we are going to have a non-appropriation week. The tablecloths cannot be appropriated patterns. The food cannot have appropriated spices. The music cannot be from anyone else's culture. Everything we do has to come from y'all. And they were totally dumbfounded. Like, I was like, call your grandma and find out what she cooked, because we're not cooking, you know, we're not making burritos, like we're not doing that. So we're making borscht, like we're gonna do your grandma's recipes. And it was really amazing, because at the end of the week, you know, there was a lot of deep learning and tears, you know, all things, people did the culture share. But for our Black staff, this was a very traumatizing week. So we stopped doing that. So now we do those type of trainings. People are like, I never knew about Dred Scott decision. Oh my God, you know, that kind of thing. It's just really hard to be around, like folks having that raw learning, which they needed to do, but not necessarily in that space. So now all of our racial justice trainings for predominantly white organizations, we go to them. And it's been important for us to have very tangible action steps. So it's not about you changing your mind, it's about you changing your action, which is a Jewish concept. Actually, my husband's Jewish. And so in the Talmud, it says do and then understand. So regardless how you feel, reparations are due, policy changes are due, and we have a very detailed policy platform that Black farmers put together, and clear next steps. So you're gonna leave this training and you're gonna commit to 3, and that's your work. You know, that's sort of our framework.
So tell us a little bit about that policy platform. I mean, I think it's.
I need you all to add to it.
Yeah, I would love to dig into that a little bit, but can you kind of give us an understanding of like what are some of the ideas that are expounded upon inside of that policy platform?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are real dry, like literal policies. Like we need the Air Property Act so that we're not losing our lands. You know, we need to fully fund SNAP and EQIP. And the 2501, which is now something else. You know, so a lot of it is like that kind of stuff. There's also guidelines for if you're trying to partner with communities of color, how to make sure you're not rowing the boat and that you're really being supportive of their agenda, our stated agenda. So there's some of that in there. The thing that's closest to my heart right now is the reparations map and the reparations work, which you alluded to earlier. We've actually had 13 people get farms as outright donations through a reparations program. Most of them went through our program. So who gave away the land, and we're like, I've got land. So the idea with the reparations map, it's very decentralized. People put their projects on there. Black and brown folks put their projects on there and what they're asking for and their contact information, or it can come through us if they don't want to share that. And then inspired people with wealth, privilege, access give the things away. And we do believe the government needs to enact whole-scale reparations, but in the meantime, this person-to-person framework has, you know, allowed 13 Black farmers to have land. So we're very excited about that.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
So I have a bunch of more questions, but I don't want to absorb the entire dialogue. So Michael, if you could do me a favor, what we can do is this mic is like the talking stick. The way that we would love to see is that folks, as you have questions, thoughts, raise your hand and we'll pass you the walking stick and we'll go around and kind of banter back and forth in that regard.
And I'm in y'all's home too, so I really want to hear from you about what you're doing and how, yeah, I'm in your home. I want to hear and learn from you too, so it doesn't have to be a question, it could be some sharing.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead. Talk.
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Got it.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Fernand.
Go ahead, Fernand.
Okay.
Give me some. Keep talking.
All right. 1, 2, 1, 2.
You got it.
Testing. All right. All right. We have I'm from a family farm down in Southampton County. Family farm about 100 years old. But we're experiencing a lot of Black farmers in a situation that they're losing their land because they can't even make enough to pay the taxes. So we're looking at alternatives. And right now, some of the farmers, we're trying to educate to take a look at growing hemp. I know some of you are aware of the new farm bill that just passed, where hemp will be legal to grow process. And I'm wondering if your organization or people you've been working with, have they been educated on this new agriculture industry and how valuable it will be in the near future?
I think Michael could say something to that.
Yeah.
Not to be on wide, but we've had several conversations about it.
Yeah,
You should speak to that, Michael, since that's your,
that's your thing.
You do that thing.
Because we got offered a contract and we're deciding, so we've never grown it. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Introduce yourself. Go ahead.
I'm Michael Carter with Virginia State University Small Farm Outreach Program. Hemp is now legal in Virginia. No longer industrial research, but now available to be grown based on the Farm Bill. There's now 3 bills in the House of Delegates that's going through to fully legalize hemp, so there's no difficulties with it. To me, personally, it's a great market to get into. Just talking to the Commissioner of Agriculture as well as the Secretary of Agriculture yesterday, to me that's our small form of reparations. Because it's an advantage to be able to grow it, because hemp is not going to not have a market. How many of us have ever smoked hemp's other form? Anybody ever smelled it?
It's not marijuana. It's cool. Because a lot that's what we run into when we're in our community, that as soon as you mention hemp, it's perceived as marijuana, and that's not the case at all.
The hemp that we're growing is going to be less than 0.3% THC. So it's mostly CBD. However, if you fertilize hemp, it moves into marijuana. So they are the same, but they're different. So it's if you fertilize hemp, you will have more than 0.3 THC. All right, but just in my conversations with the governor and some other folks yesterday, there are also 2 bills in the state of Virginia that's looking to legalize marijuana. So it's coming down the pike, even if it's not legal now, it's coming. And I encourage all farmers, especially black farmers, to get in the game. Because you don't get in the game, you're going to close out of the game, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of this billion, if not $1 trillion opportunity. The advantages to hemp are significant, and marijuana is really significant. And this is a sidebar to marijuana. There are strains of marijuana that come from Africa that are much more unique. There's one that comes out of Congo that has what's called THCV. The THCV does not, it suppresses your appetite, doesn't give you the munchies. And it also is good for diabetes. So it represses your appetite and it's good for diabetes. So a lot of research that can be done on the plant, through Virginia State, Virginia Tech, JMU and others. If we get in the game, it's a great opportunity for agriculture and especially organic agriculture. Hemp is also one of those plants that hates chemicals, metals. You have to grow it clean. You can't grow it with chemical fertilizers and things like that. Or else it's going to really disrupt the chemical compounds of the plant. So for black farmers, I would definitely say apply to get your license. A $50 license through VDAX, Virginia Department of Agriculture. My farm is about to be licensed. Mr. Cliff Slade's farm is licensed. His brother Zebo's about to get a license. Get in the game. And for $50 to get in the game, that ain't bad at all. But anyway, that's my.
Good evening. My name is Fernand Turner. A lot of people know me as Brother Zebo. I just wanted to bring to y'all's attention that here in Virginia that we do have a Virginia minority hemp farmers group. Brother Fernando, Brother Prince. We're all part of that. So if you're interested, just get up with us. Look us up on Facebook. Okay? But if you don't, you will get left out.
Yes, I'm Cliff Slade with Slade Farms. I want to share a story with you about my application process. I was one of the first of 17 in Virginia to apply. I got my permit right away, but being the public relations person I try to be, I called my local sheriff and said, Sheriff Turner, I just got a license to grow hemp. Folk are going to say, yep, that's why you've been so successful, because you've been growing marijuana all the time. And I wanted him to know that because I figured someone was going to tell him I was growing marijuana. And he said, I know. How you know? And he said it was covered in the Virginia Sheriff's Association meeting that these applications were coming out. The first person they called is the local sheriff. If you have a shaded past, you may not get a permit. And they don't have to give you a reason. It'll stop right there. The other piece of advice he gave me was that it would be
Hello, my name is
nice to know
Patrick
that
Johnson,
they
and I'm a small farmer
process
here in
of
the
the
Richmond region. And my question is about the reparation project that you have. Are there any strings attached to this land that these folks are giving out of the generosity of their hearts, or is there some types of hoops that you got to jump through in order to avail yourself of this process?
Amen. Yeah, our policy for reparations is give it away, no strings attached, no oversight. So for anyone to get involved with the reparations map as a donor, they have to adhere to that because we're not looking for white folks to try to control our projects. So absolutely. I'll add one thing to that. Out of this reparations work, we wanted to formalize it a little bit, and this doesn't impact y'all so much, but we have a land trust that we're forming together with 12 indigenous tribes in the Northeast and black farmers in the Northeast. It covers New England and upstate New York. We're in the incorporation process right now, and that will allow people to donate lands because it will be a nonprofit organization. They can get their tax break and all the stuff, conservation easements, in the land trust, and the land trust can then redistribute those ground leases to the farming community, to the indigenous community, because there was a lot of interest, but some owners, can't give it away like that without some kind of tax break or da-da-da. So we're creating an organization that's run by Black indigenous people to formalize that. And I know that Saffon in the Southeast is trying to do something similar in the future. So hopefully every region will have these types of land trusts going forward.
That's a very interesting point that this allows me to segue into something that's happening here in the city. The Maggie Walker Community Land Trust is an organization that in the last year was set up and designated as the city's land bank, and it operates as a land trust. So under their guise, of course, like many urban land trusts, community land trusts, their goal is affordable housing, but they are very explicit in their second priority being urban agriculture and green spaces. So if a property falls into the land bank that isn't fit for a home to be built upon, we're working with them now to try to identify what that process looks like for transferal into community ownership. And I think it's a really revolutionary opportunity because these folks were like, yo, no, we don't want to hold a lease. We want the community to own the land, so how much does it cost? How much should it, like, well, make it $1 or $200. I mean, but then also take into consideration that there may be some folks that can't own land at that moment. They might not be in a position where they feel comfortable with like paying the taxes and doing the infrastructure and all that different type of stuff. So I allow that to be an option as well for a ground lease. So yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity to segue into that. I want to ask you a question though. In your book, you talk about movement building, right? You talk about this three-tiered or this three-pronged approach to movement building, and you did do that. You talk about it as being three spaces. One, policy shifting. Two, direct action, protests. And then three, alternative institution building. So I was hoping that maybe, because in this room, I think we are a composite of all three of those spaces. We have folks that are advocates, right? Then we have folks that are policy makers, right? Or decision makers, or folks that are influencing policy. And then we have folks that are trying to develop alternative methods of engaging with the system. So I was hoping maybe you can kind of like talk about what that legacy or where those ideas came from in terms of like African American farmers and their relationship to like the civil rights movement, things like that. Like, how can we like take lessons from those who were farmers during the 60s and 70s and allowed for many of our freedom riders and all those other things to evolve out of that? Maybe you can just chime on that a little bit. You mind?
Yeah, that original idea, I like to think in threes because my elders in Ghana, in Krobo land, they say latte ete no no da, which is like 3 stones make the cooking pot balance. And I think sometimes in our movements we get real caught up with criticizing each other. Too radical, not radical enough, not hardworking enough, And really we need all three prongs. You know, it's the folks who are chaining themselves to the pipelines and squatting up in those redwood trees that freak out the policymakers and make them come to the table with the reformists to actually change the law and get something, you know, done. And then you have the institution builders, like many of us in this room, that are painting a picture of what's possible in a changed world, so we know what we're striving toward, right? And creating these sanctuary spaces. So all of it deeply matters. And as far as the civil rights movement, an elder of mine, I'm trying to have more older people in my life because they're so smart and amazing. But Donald Halfkenny, who was a Black Panther, he actually fled the country. He lives in Germany now because he was being chased by the FBI and so on. So he was explaining to me that when he went down as a young 18-year-old to the South to register people to vote, you know, Freedom Summer and all of that, that the Black farmers were literally the backbone of the movements. All the meetings they had, they would go inside of the house of the Black farmers, pretend they're having Bible study, but there'd be like voter registration pamphlets in the Bibles, you know. When the night riders would come and try to get them, the Black farmers would cut down trees and block the only road, you know, coming into the farm to give the activists time to escape. They leveraged their land as collateral for bail money. They couldn't get kicked off their own land because they were not tenant farmers, and so they could go ahead and register to vote, join the NAACP, and so on and so forth. We know the USDA punished them, but at the time. So the point being that these landowning Black farmers, probably many folks in your family, there would be no civil rights movement without y'all. And that's because of the alternative institution building. That was what, those alternative institutions are what provided the foundation for people to go like march and protest, and eventually in '65, you know, to get some legislation change, which was the, you know, civil rights legislation, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about that story. You brought it up, and I think this ties into kind of like maybe what could be our last couple points, right? You brought up the point about the USDA and their role in using your language, punishing, you know, African American farmers. We know we're living, what's it, 2 generations past kind of like the Great Migration, like we're 2, maybe 3 now?
Started in 19. It was a long migration.
Yeah, so we got like, you know, 3 generations of remove. I know my grandma, so I'll use myself as a reference. I got kids, so maybe that'll be the 3rd. So my grandmother, my great grandmother came to the city, you know, in probably like the 50s, right? And you know, my grandmother, my mother didn't live in the country, so we still had a grandmother to go to the country to visit. In my era, my kids not so much. You know what I mean? So that's why I say it's like 3 generations removed. But when we talk about the USDA's role in that Great Migration, and not only their role in it, but what are some of the other factors that kind of prompted this mass movement of people of African ancestry out of rural areas into the city? And you know, we can kind of segue into that conversation about white wealth as a result after we get out of that.
Circle back
to that.
Yeah, you know, I remember when I first learned about the Great Migration, it was just painted all roses, like seeking opportunity in the North and the factory jobs and the Harlem Renaissance and jazz and all of this stuff. And not that there isn't part of the truth, but something that I've learned, you know, in this research is that it was a refugee crisis, right? It was actually 4,500 people were lynched, the houses burned down, the crosses burned, the children kidnapped, right? And all of this was primarily targeting people who were considered too uppity. So they were trying to get off of the plantation. They were trying to own their own land or their own businesses, burning down Rosewood and all. So all of this drove people away. So that was kind of the first wave. But then the USDA, I mean, they've been discriminating all along from the AAA in 34 and moving up ahead. But what Pete Daniel writes in Dispossession is that during the civil rights movement, the USDA programs were sharpened into a weapon to punish civil rights activity, which is why I mentioned that. So if you signed a petition, joined the NAACP, registered to vote, you would go bring your loan application into your local county agent, and they would say, oh, I'm sorry, we're closed for the day, right? And this compounded over and over and over again to ultimately leading to foreclosures and dispossession of lands. And it's why there was a class action suit. I'm sure you know Pickford versus Glickman. It was settled in '99 in favor of the black farmers. It was the largest civil rights settlement in the history of this country. And something amazing that's going on right now is there's a couple $1 million left of that settlement, sadly, because many of the people who had money owed to them passed away. It went on so long, right? Too little, too late. But there's a group of black farmers who've been meeting to try to create a fund from that money to support the next generation of black farmers. So we are, you know, carrying on that legacy of resistance through it. What do you think about white wealth?
Well, you know,
So when we talk about land ownership and dispossession, you know, one of the things that I love to like point out to people that here in Virginia, Richmond in particular, the reason why I call this ground zero, you know, I went to church. For those who are in Rome, Reveille Church. It's in Carytown. So I went to Reveille for a tour. It's one of the oldest buildings in the city of Richmond. And it's also one of the wealthiest churches in the city of Richmond. So when they gave the story about Reveille, they said from this door, which is, it's hard for you to reference because you're not from the city, but from this door, you used to be able to see the James River, and that 50,000 acres was bequeathed to this original family from King George, right? And so, you know, I'm in this tour. It was with Shane. This is with our guard communities. What was their inheritance? No land, of course, right? You didn't inherit anything as a enslaved prisoner of, you know, someone's plantation home. So, you know, when I talk about white wealth, it's really funny. It's a stark reality. Sometimes when you bring out white wealth in a room, people, it's like, yes, white people are wealthy. And it's not all white people, but the reality